House of Representatives considers bills to establish Southeast-Southwest Development Commissions. House drums support for climate change bill. And House passes 2022 appropriation bill for second reading. Hello, thank you for joining us again on You and Your Reps. It's a program committed to activities of the House of Representatives and its members. I'm Victor, as welcome. The House of Representatives has approved reports on bills seeking the establishment of development commissions for the southeast and southwest of Nigeria. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports.
The consideration of reports on the two bills as the Committee of the Whole featured provision of insights on the merits of the bills.
Receive and manage funds from allocation of the Federation for the rehabilitation, reconstruction, and reparation for houses and lost businesses of victims of the Civil War, and address any other environmental or developmental challenges.
For the reconstruction and rehabilitation of roads, houses, and other infrastructural damages suffered by the region, and the need to tackle the ecological problems and any other related environmental or developmental challenges in the Southwest.
Meanwhile, the House has resolved to investigate encroachment on federal government infrastructure in Nigeria, as moved by Representative Isiaka Ibrahim.
Many of interloper developers, farmers, land grabbers, hoodlums, destitute, encroaching on the developed or underdeveloped or undeveloped property of government in Nigeria, which has become a worrisome development in the country.
The need to address the lingering power outage in Lere, Kaduna State, as raised by Ahmed Munir, was also supported.
Urge the Federal Ministry of Power to mediate between the Kaduna Electricity Distribution Company and the Jos Electricity Distribution Company to sort out the lingering issues with the view to restoring electricity supply to Lere Federal Constituency.
Meanwhile, the Speaker, Femi Gbajabiamila, has directed the clerk to write the Federal Capital Territory Administration on the state of infrastructure at the National Assembly. This was after some lawmakers complained of discomfort as the chamber cooling system was down.
Sir, we are suffocating because the place is extremely hot.
The other time, we were fairly embarrassed that the roofs were leaking. And we would expect that the landlords and the owners of the structure, which is the FCT, would take appropriate action.
Clerk, please write a formal letter to the PAMSEC enumerating these issues and make it conducive for us.
Other features during plenary include presentation of reports, among them the report on a bill to enact the Insurance Act, 4 establishment bills passed second reading.
Meanwhile, in its efforts to tackle environmental challenges confronting Nigeria, the House of Representatives has assured a forum of lawmakers, Global Legislators Organization for a Balanced Environment, of the National Assembly's support through climate-friendly legislations.
Nigeria has a tropical climate with distinct wet and dry seasons. It is characterized by natural environmental hazards and human activities that have continued to contribute to issues of environmental degradation. It is against this backdrop that the Global Legislators Organization for a Balanced Environment are intensifying legislation capable of addressing the impact of climate change.
In our quest to mitigate and adapt to the impacts of climate change through is reducing emissions from forest degradation and deforestation. We are talking about RED now, RED+, and the Great Green Wall Initiative programs.
The UK stands steadfast with Nigeria on its efforts to tackle climate change and indeed all the other Sustainable Development Goals.
Speaker, House of Representatives, in a message at the event, expressed optimism that the initiative will serve as a tool for sustainable development in Nigeria.
It takes somebody who is in love of nature, not thinking of what will enter his pocket, to venture into this initiative. And I commend you and your group for this wonderful assignment that you have embarked upon. And let me clearly tell you that you have the backing of the House.
Stakeholders believe that with clear legal framework on climate and environmental issues, collective approach will be better achieved.
And following the debate, the House of Representatives passed the 2022 appropriation bill for second reading. This has now paved the way for commencement of intense engagements between standing committees and ministries, departments and agencies of government for budget defense.
Before the second reading of the bill, House members during debate on the proposed spending for 2022 said MDAs must be taxed to use release funds for the purpose meant, as that is the only way to ensure that government policies make desired impact.
If they do not do that, we are going to consider adjustment to the budget in such a way that our resolution will be considered before passing to Mr.
Corruption is one of the areas that we have been talking about. And again, when we look at the budget, we have not given the anti-corruption agencies an adequate budget.
Some lawmakers pointed to areas of concern that should be attended to.
This particular budget should incorporate the impact of climate change, on our environment. The environmental degradation that is happening, the desertification that is happening in the north, the erosions that is happening around the southeast.
We should scrutinize the deduction being made by NNTC.
We should jack up the benchmark to 65 and reduce the borrowing.
I also see that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is underfunded. Allocation of 85 billion with today's exchange rate is only about $147 million.
All the various contributions that have come in to strengthen the budget will be taken into consideration as we move into the committee system.
The Appropriations Committee immediately swung into action as it held its first meeting.
In our timetable, we are proposing to lay the budget by 14th of December.
Thursday's plenary featured the passing of amendment bills for the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Bauchi, the Danfodio University, Sokoto, and the University of Maiduguri, while the bill to establish Federal University of Education, Pangshin Plateau State, sponsored by Yusuf Gagdi, was passed. The House also passed 4 bills seeking the establishment of development commissions for the Southeast, Southwest, Northwest, and North Central Nigeria. Meanwhile, the House has resolved to investigate the non-takeoff of the e-customs modernization project, of which the Central Bank of Nigeria is a major party, as moved by Leke Abejide. House members, in response to the prayers of Abubakar Maki, called for urgent response by authorities to arrest malaria infestation in parts of Jigawa State.
The Ministry of Health and other health-related agencies take immediate steps in order to protect the lives of the good people of Maramudori Kaugama Federal Constituency in Jigawa State from further death as a result of the malaria infestation.
The House has adjourned plenary to 9th of November 2021 to carry out the budget defense exercise.
The phrase giant committee suggests the coming together of at least 2 committees. But when this is deployed by the legislature, what comes to mind? Let's hear it from the House's mouth. Chairman, House Committee on Rules and Business, Abubakar Fulata, is our guide.
Before a bill is passed by the National Assembly, it must pass in the House of Reps and also Senate. There are occasions where bills are passed by the House and the Senate with different versions. There will be a Senate version and there will also be a House version. Now, when the 2 chambers disagree as to the content of a bill, then a joint committee is set up. A conference committee is set up. The conference committee is made up of equal members. They will now sit jointly to arrive at the final version, one version. which will now be adopted by by the two chambers. We also have joint sittings when, for example, the National Assembly, comprising the House of Representatives and Senate, they will sit jointly to receive the national budget address of Mr. President. And then they will now disperse to go and consider the budget in their various committees. So joint sittings it depends on the situation, okay? Whether at a committee level, considering the two versions of a bill, harmonizing it into one, or in the case of the two chambers sitting to receive a national budget address.
Benue State has had its fair share of security challenges. Now, part of the solutions often suggested in a bid to find lasting solutions to the menace is education of the youth. This prompted the call for an upgrade of the College of Education Katsina-Ala, Benue State, to a Federal University of Education. How is that coming up? Well, we spoke with the member representing Katsina-Ala, Ukum and Logo Federal Constituency of Benue State, Richard Bande, to get an update.
I happen to come from Zone A, and Zone A is the biggest zone in Benue State, and we have no higher institution in the zone. So I believe now that the bill has passed through the second reading and my colleagues have approved of it, once that bill is done and College of Education Katsina-Ala is upgraded to Federal University of Education Katsina-Ala, there will be a lot of benefits to my constituents. First and foremost, it will create room for employment, which most of the teeming graduates that have no job will have job. Also, you cannot give what you do not have. This system of half-baked education, that our teachers, there's a clamor that the quality of education or the standard of education is falling. But believe you me, with the establishment of Federal University of Katsina-Ala, the trainer of the trainee. Once the teachers are well trained, they will be well equipped to train other teachers that will continue to enhance effective and quality teaching in our own schools. And at the end of the day, it will address the gap of the brain drain in the system. So at the end of the day, the people will be very, very happy. And also, once a higher institution is established in an area, you discover that a lot of development will take place, a lot of emphasis. And that zone, Katsina-Ala, or from my constituency, you discover that with a lot of these hoodlums, a lot of our own people that are not doing anything, they constitute security threats. But if that is established, believe you me, most of them will be engaged and will be trained to be useful members of our own society.
Engagements between the legislature and ministries, departments and agencies on the 2022 appropriation bill is set to begin. But what is the feeling among ordinary Nigerians? You and your reps went to the streets to get a sense of it.
In terms of volume, share volume at 16 trillion, it's obviously the largest budget Nigeria has ever had. And given the sectoral allocation too, you could see that it's primarily targeted to achieve those areas of priority of this present regime. Defense, for instance, has the largest single chunk of allocation as per the breakdown given by the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning. One would have loved to see a greater percentage of the budget being deployed to capital projects. But given the structure of governance and the cost of governance, it's almost impracticable.
Since they have not been able to execute 2021 project, I think most of the projects should be rolled over to 2022 so that people can have a dividend of democracy.
What was allocated for education was quite low, even health. I think those are the paramount things that should be looked into, but I hope the education budget will be increased.
Education is power. More money should be spent on education, not on security that more or less to me has become an industry in this country. We should invest in our youths. And secondly, I don't understand why we keep saying that Nigeria is not developing. We have to import finished vehicle, finish this, finish everything. Why can't this Japanese company, Chinese company come to Nigeria, set up factories or assembly plant or whatever it may be called, so Nigerian youths that have finished school can work there and develop their skill in the process?
There should be adequate budgetary provision, first and foremost, to take care of the educational sector of the country, then health, followed by security. Because we have security challenge, and therefore there should be plan and program that has to do with financial implications in order to stem the rising tide of insecurity in the country. Education is likely to provide us with knowledge and understanding of the implication of engaging in banditry and kidnapping and stuff like that.
The Chairman, House of Representatives Committee on Steel Development, Abdullah Ibrahim Halims, has been speaking on the prospects of the AJAOKUTA steel mill. Now, the lawmaker who represents the AMPA or Malao Lamaboro Federal Constituency of Kogi State is our guest on the committee segment.
We oversight all the agencies under steel development. Principally among them, we have the Raw Material Research Institute in Jos. We have Steel Development Research Institute again in Kaduna. And we have the AJAOKUTA Steel Complex. We have the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development. We have the Metallurgical Institute, a training institute in Onitsha. And we have the Itakpe iron ore steel industry in Itakpe in Kogi State. We oversee the operations, the expenditure, the consumption of appropriated funds as far as the agencies are concerned. We will ensure that, yes, they comply substantially with the act establishing them so that they don't operate beyond their scope. The only challenge we have is that of bringing AJAOKUTA to production. That is the greatest challenge we are having. And as you know, as a committee, we've been putting our best. We are doing our best, and we are in alignment with the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the presidency as far as trying to bring the institution into production. Because AJAOKUTA, once it comes into production, a lot of achievement will be achieved for this country. But according to our recent findings, there's what we call the technical audit of AJAOKUTA, and that is the issue that is holding AJAOKUTA from getting into, bringing the Russians, because the original maker of that industry is Russians, and for us to have efficient production and very efficient finishing, they need to bring the Russians back to enable them complete according to specifications of what they have started. What we are waiting for really is fund for the technical audit. And once those funds are released or they have been released, the only thing we will have to do is to engage the auditors to ascertain the level or what is on ground before the experts from the Russians come and tidy up their work. Once AJAOKUTA is fully functional, that is to say that the biggest industry in terms of things that will industrialize this nation will be running. You know what I mean? Like in the production of all metals, ships, even automobiles, mention them, common iron, common pin, common razor blades. These are, what are going to come out of AJAOKUTA. You think of, metallurgy, the metallurgical development that will come out of a productive steel sector. You understand? And apart from that, think of the number of skilled workers, professionals that will be engaged as far as AJAOKUTA running 100% is concerned. Well over 10,000 skilled engineers. 10,000. You know what? When that is taken out of the labor market in this country today, that is skilled workers. Talk of all the artisans, the economy, the insecurity. Mention them, and this will reduce insecurity out of our, the country as a whole. In the presentation of the budget, the government, the president unequivocally stated that yes, AJAOKUTA still will start running before he leaves, before his tenure ends, and we should believe him because that is our president. He has never spoken anything that has not come to pass, and I believe in him. So by the grace of God, before the end of this tenure, we should have AJAOKUTA running. The 2022 appropriation, as President had rightly stated, it is intended to stimulate the economy and bring infrastructural development. And by the grace of God, the critical infrastructure are the areas that the government is so concerned, so that our resources will be channeled towards production, towards development of our critical infrastructure, so that we can have tomorrow. When we have investment into, permanent infrastructure, critical infrastructure, then we can guarantee, you and I, we can guarantee our tomorrow. You understand? So the budget as it is intended to save us from, the doomsday. Since our inception, we've come out with an understanding, let me call it, that the cycle for the budget runs from January to December. And since we started, it has been like that. So it's almost a normal thing. It's a normal phenomenon as far as budget is concerned. We believe that the budget has been presented, and before the end of the year, we should have been done with it. Once they are fully open for us,
we will now look at it. Where there are not enough funds appropriated, we will reappropriate.
Interesting what the AJAOKUTA steel mill can bring to the table as Nigeria works towards economic diversification. Well, here's wishing the House Committee on Steel Development the very best in its efforts. And that's you and your reps for the week. Thank you for spending your time with us. I am Victor Azu. Join us again.